Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Les Caves virtual Christmas tasting. We're kind of technophobes here at Les Caves, so it's a miracle that we've managed to do anything like this. In fact, half of our staff members didn't even know what YouTube was until I proposed the idea. My name's Daniel. I'm the shop manager here at Les Caves de Perrennes, and I'm joined by my colleague Stu.
Hello.
I've been drinking wine professionally for 13 years. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Whilst working in restaurants up and down the UK, starting in the Isle of Skye and making my way down to glamorous Farnborough. That was a cracking move. And I ended up working in the wonderful world of retail at Les Caves de Perrennes, surrounded by all of these fantastic natural wines. My colleague Stu, he's came late to the wine industry, but he's doing his utmost to drink as much as possible, as quickly as possible, to gain as much knowledge as possible. He had a glittering career in the care sector before coming here. So, it's enough rambling, and without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Anything better than a glass of champagne? I don't think so, which is why I have a glass here, and hopefully you do as well. We're trying the Jean-Paul Deville Carte d'Or, non-vintage. Carte d'Or, not to be confused with the ice cream, obviously, coming in at 12% ABV. It's a blend of 70% Pinot Noir and 30% Chardonnay. We've been working with Deville for ages and ages, decades. I think it was one of the first champagnes we ever stocked at Les Caves. Our warehouse manager, Pete, has been working here for over 25 years, and he says that it's been on the list ever since he remembers. So we've got a great relationship with them. They make a really fantastic level of champagne. It was started in 1969, and they've just been making great leaps and bounds ever since then. They don't really have all of their own vines, but they do buy a few grapes in from other vineyards around about. So let's give it a wee try. Yeah, on the nose you've got those beautiful stewed fruits, maybe a touch of pear, a nice biscuitiness coming in there as well. It just really smells alive. It smells like a really lovely champagne. On the palate, yeah, so you've got beautiful stewed fruit flavors coming through on the palate, slight biscuitiness, quite a broad palate, quite bready, but really great acidity as well, and really kind of vivacious and delicious, and just a great way to start an evening or a morning or an afternoon at any time of day. Champagne is good any time of day. So I hope you're sitting there enjoying this lovely half bottle of champagne. And without further ado, we are now heading on to the white wines.
Welcome back, and we're now moving on to the white wines. So we're starting off with an absolute cracker. This is the Terre de Pierre 2018 vintage. We're looking at 12% by volume. This is, of course, a Muscadet. So the grape we're looking at here is the Melon de Bourgogne, 100%. And we're in obviously Muscadet on the Loire Valley. So I think these wines really have the ability to compare to some fantastic white Burgundies and stand shoulder to shoulder for sometimes a fraction of the cost for the quality you're getting. The producer here is Pierre-Marie Lugnot-Papin. He took on from his father, Pierre Lugnot-Papin, back in 2011, though the vineyard and the estate have been in the family since the 18th century, so lots of really rich history there, and the craftsmanship that they've learned over the years is really evident in this wine. So let's have a little taste and see what we're looking at. So without further waffling, let's get stuck in. Let's see what we're looking at here. So straight away, the slightly richer golden colour, that's coming from the lees aging. So this has been lees aged for 17 months. That's where the wine is left on its yeast to make a sort of richer, biscuity aromas that you might find. So certainly getting that here on the nose. We're getting those lovely sort of biscuity aromas, some citrus flavours are very apparent, and it's just got a lovely freshness, almost like you're on the coast with a nice sort of sea breeze. You can almost smell the minerality in that. So let's have a taste. Lovely little muscadet. So it's a little bit richer than some of the other muscadets. It's from the lees aging. It's got a lovely bit of viscosity, beautiful mouthfeel. That follows through lovely mineral finish. Obviously the fruits as you'd expect are all there. A little bit of lemon, some citrus. 100% is mostly what you're getting there. The acidity is really, really good. Super clean. Absolute belter of a drop. So I hope you also enjoy that one. And on to the next one.
So with this next wine, we have a real treat for you. I actually discovered this wine at a rather boozy Christmas party a couple of years ago at Terroir Central, which is one of our restaurants. If you haven't been, check it out. It's the Labo 2017 from Hervé Villemard. Comes in at 13% ABV. They're based out of Chevigny, which is in the Loire Valley in France, and it's a split of 80% Sauvignon Blanc and 20% Chardonnay, which is a bit of an unusual combo, but really delicious. The estate was originally owned by Hervé's grandparents. Hervé's parents then took it over, and then it was then handed to Hervé and his sister. His sister then left, and Hervé now runs the estate solo, well, with the help of 4 other people, and occasionally his dad, who'll come and help in the vines. He doesn't like touching the cellar, but he'll help with the harvest and tending to the vines as well. The first thing Hervé and his sister did when they took over the estate was they wanted to change everything to organic practices. So that's no pesticides and no chemicals used in the vineyards, and minimal sulfur used at bottling as well. And these practices really shine through in the wine. Get an incredibly pure expression of the grapes and the terroir. Just a little nugget of information for you. I'm going to have to read this off a sheet, unfortunately, because I can't remember it all. The cuvée name Labo 10 is the official local land registry name for the area in which the parcel that produced this cuvée is located. Labo 10 is a linguistic transformation over the centuries of the words "C'est beau ici," or "it's beautiful here." Hervé adds, "It is indeed the most beautiful place in the world. There are small hills and slopes and woodland." Sounds idyllic. Now I've bigged the wine up so much, let's have a little go at it. So on the nose you've got these beautiful kind of cooked and fresh fruits. Almost, it reminds me of my granny used to make stewed apples with custard, and I think it really reminds me of the aroma of that. So you kind of get apples and pears and lemon rind, almost a touch of fennel as well on the palate. Yeah, you get a real richness on the palate, which comes from the lees aging, almost slightly buttery. And you kind of got those fresh fruits coming in at the start, and then it finishes with really bracing acidity. Great line of acidity through this wine. I can still taste it. The finish is long, really super complex. Obviously the acidity coming from the high percentage of Sauvignon in there. And you are picking out those little kind of Sauvignon-esque nuances. I just think it's really delicious, really complex, and just something slightly unusual, but stunning. One of my favourites. Hope you enjoyed it. On to the next one.
Hello there, and welcome back to the next wine of the tasting. Next up, we're heading over to Alsace, and we have the Aquillet Riesling, 2018, 11.5% alcohol there. The very traditional sort of tall long neck bottle from Alsace. Alsace, sometimes the forgotten or lesser appreciated region of France, but I think it really deserves some attention. It produces some absolutely amazing wines and usually really good value as well. So Riesling, very versatile grape, can be made in the super dry, sort of bone dry examples as we have here, going all the way through to sweet wines, an incredibly versatile grape. So let's explore. So Aquilay is owned by Yves Dietrich and his sons Jean and Pierre. Jean and Pierre took over the winery in 2016, so relatively recently, though it's been in the Dietrich family since the 1600s. They've traditionally been a polyculture where they've grown various fruits, and they've sort of specialized more recently with predominantly producing wines. So in 1999, Yves converted the farming to entirely organic, and then in 2003, they also attained biodynamic farming status. So clearly working in harmony with nature and a holistic approach to their farming is incredibly central to their ethos. In fact, I've got a nice bit of interesting information about the name. So Aquilay is the name of a plant. So in English, it's commonly known as the common yarrow. It's used as an infusion in biodynamic farming, where it grows very naturally in the vineyards and is sometimes planted intentionally, as in this case, by the vignerons, for its ability to enhance the antifungal powers of the plants surrounding. So then that has the effect that it reduces the need for spraying with sulfur. It means they can work much more sort of naturally without having to use pesticides anywhere near as much. And it's so core to their ethos that they wanted to name themselves after the plant. So Aquilay. So without further ado, let's get stuck in and see what we're dealing with here. So this has got over a year's lees aging again, so you're getting that slightly richer colour. Looks delicious. Looks really nice. On the nose, we've got that really typical lime flavour coming through. Other citrus as well, but definitely predominantly lime there, as you would expect. A little bit of carotene, which is very typical for Riesling. It was initially thought to be a fault, but that is just a characteristic of Rieslings. It can be a little divisive. I personally love it. I think it's a really interesting sort of addition to the other flavours that you get there. I think it adds to the complexity. So yeah, beautiful. Let's have a taste. Wow, what a clean, precise wine that is. Lime, again, definitely there, really citrusy. That acidity is just inescapable. It's massive, but makes it so clean and refreshing. A little bit of that sort of wet stone on the palate that you sometimes get from Riesling. Really, really interesting. I think they've balanced that to perfection. It's a great example of like a bone dry Riesling and shows what Alsace is really capable of. And with that, we're on to the next one. Cheers.
Okay, so next up we're heading off to South Africa, to Swartland, to taste the Intellego Syrah 2017. Comes in at a juicy little 13%. Jürgen Gauss is the winemaker there. He's a really cool guy. He comes over every year for our real wine fair, and he's just a really kind of cool, humble winemaker. Before Intellego, he travelled the world essentially making wine at different natural wineries. Spain, France, New Zealand, and even Russia, bizarrely enough. After that, he then moved back to his native South Africa and started making wine with Craig Hawkins. Craig is one of the kind of pioneers of natural wine in South Africa, of which there isn't a huge amount being made. And then after a couple of years, Jürgen then went on to his own endeavour, which is Intellego. Intellego is a natural wine. They don't have any vines as of yet. They source all of their grapes from different vineyards, and but they make sure that those grapes are kind of organic, biodynamic, and really high quality. Interestingly enough, when South Africa were having those terrible droughts out there, a lot of the vineyards, major vineyards, they're irrigated. So when the droughts hit, a lot of those vineyards died. Essentially, they had to choose which vineyards to save, which was absolutely tragic. After speaking to Jurgen, he said that the vineyards that he sources his grapes from, they don't irrigate, so the roots are super deep. So it wasn't actually too badly affected by the drought because they were still getting a little bit of water because their roots were so deep, which I thought was really cool, and just another kind of win for the natural wine movement, I suppose. His wines are really marked out by a purity. They generally have slightly higher acidity than what you'd normally expect. But let's have a little taste and see what we think. Yeah, so on the nose you get a lot of fresh fruit, kind of fresh black currants, blackberries, maybe a touch of spice in there as well, a slight kind of irony kind of note coming out there as well, maybe slightly gravelly, maybe a touch of licorice as well, white pepper, and on the palate, yeah, for me this is a classic Intellego wine. A lot of Syrah that you try can be very over extracting and jammy and quite spicy and a little bit out of whack. With this wine, you're getting a lot of fresh fruit and quite high acidity, which I personally really enjoy. You are starting to get a little bit of spiciness on the finish, but I think the wine's really well rounded, kind of powdery tannins, really juicy. For me, these kind of wines I kind of have as like an intermediary in Christmas. So generally in our household we have something rich to start with, perhaps like a Bordeaux. But my palate quickly gets tired of the oak, so I kind of start craving a bit of acidity. And this wine's really great, sort of like as an in-between, because you're getting that acidity to kind of waken your palate up again after all the rich food and the rich wine. And I just think it's a real winner. And I'm a huge fan of Jurgen's, and I think he's done a stellar job here. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy that kind of slightly different style of Syrah, perhaps than you were used to. And without further ado, on to the next one.
Welcome back. We're carrying on with our journey through the red wines now. Next up, we have the Morgon 2018 vintage from Jean Foyard. This one is coming in at 13%. So Morgon, obviously from Beaujolais, one of the well-known appellations to have slightly richer, fuller fruit and riper berries, and this is certainly no exception. In fact, Jean Foyard has been recognised as one of the Gang of Five by Kermit Lynch, recognised amongst some of the greatest producers in Beaujolais for really sort of modernising and transforming the idea of what a Gamay can be. So we've moved away from the bubblegummy, super juicy, fresh versions of Gamay to much more sophisticated, complex drops that are really excellent. Jean Foyard started in viticulture back in 1982. He then sort of rented and worked on various vineyards before acquiring his own place near the very prestigious Côte Pie. It was in a complete state of disrepair at the time, so they spent many years turning the soil and getting it into a workable form before they could even produce their first bottlings. They tend to work very organically and biodynamically, though they haven't officially sought the certifications thereof. They use very little sulfur, only a tiny bit when bottling, so they're incredibly sort of natural, clean wines. So that's enough of the history. Let's have a little taste. So on the nose here, we have a little bit of spiciness, some pepper, maybe a little hint of cinnamon in there, along with the fruit, predominantly blackberries, maybe a little cherry in there as well. It smells great. So let's have a go. Let's have a taste. Such an elegant wine. I really think this stands shoulder to shoulder with some of the best that Burgundy has to offer. Really, really cracking drop. It just shows you what a humble grape like Gamay can actually achieve in the right hands and right conditions. So here, yeah, we're getting all the same fruits, lots of blackberry, nice bit of spiciness. The finish is still going there. There's a tiny bit of minerality, just kind of carrying it through. Really soft, silky, supple tannins, just wrapping it all up together. As far as pairings go, this is going to be great with any sort of Sunday roast, game, anything like that. It's just going to really shine. Though quite frequently when I'm drinking this, I'm just very happy with the bottle and like a nice log fire, my favourite program on TV, and just kicking back and really, really letting the wine speak for itself. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. It's one of my favourite wines here at Le Cave, so cheers.
Of the bunch, and we are heading over to Spain, to Rioja. This is the Hacienda Grimont Reserva 2015. It comes in at a weighty 14.5%. Hacienda Grimont is based in the Rioja Alta. It's run by a couple of brothers, Paco and Alicio. They work organically, so no herbicides or pesticides are used on the vines. They truly believe that only great wines are made from healthy grapes, so they take the utmost care in the vineyard and the cellar. Interestingly enough, all of Hacienda Grimont's wines are made from their own grapes as well, which is quite a rarity in the Rioja Alta. So, how's the wine tasting? On the nose, immediately you get those vanilla-y kind of coconut notes that comes from the oak aging. Incidentally, Crianza Reserva and Gran Reserva, they all relate to the amount of oak aging that the wine receives. So Crianza is 24 months, Reserva's 36, and Gran Reserva's up to 60. So yeah, lots of rich, ripe fruit in there. Maybe a touch of citrus, some spice. A really inviting nose. That is so up my street. Yeah, for me, Rioja is such a comforting wine. You get all those beautiful kind of oaky flavors coming through, but it's so well judged and balanced, I think. No kind of individual component is overwhelming the other. So you've got really good acidity, but you've got really ripe fruit to counteract that. You've got the oak, but it's really well integrated into the wine. And it's quite high alcohol, 14.5. There's a touch of heat, but it's not overwhelming. Such a delicious bottle. For me, it's one for a roaring log fire, rain battering on the window, and a lovely kind of film or a book to read. A real kind of leather armchair kind of wine is how I describe it. So, hope you enjoy it, and we're heading on to the next one.
Hello and welcome back to the last wine from this particular tasting, and we're going to wrap things up here with the Jurançon La Magendière from Clos La Père. So geographically we're down in the southwest of France, in the foothills of the Pyrenees, about 40 kilometers from Spain. This particular wine here is 2016 vintage. So a nice bit of bottle age, getting the nice sort of dark yellowing, almost going into amber colours from the extra bit of bottle age that this bottle's had. 12.5% for alcohol. So it all started here back in the 1920s when the current winemaker Jean Bernard Larieux, grandfather, also Jean, bought the land, and it was predominantly a strawberry farm back then. They had polyculture, so they were working with cattle and lots of different fruits that they were producing. That subsequently passed on to his son Marcel, and then on to Jean Bernard in the 80s. And after he'd finished his studies in viticulture, he produced the first vintage in 1985. So next we're going to have a little taste and see what we're looking at. So again, with the really rich golden colours, there is the first thing that sort of stands out, and the sort of great viscosity of the wine sort of sticking to the sides, obviously from the sugars in there. So on the nose, so many distinct, really apparent flavours, aromas there. Some tropical mango, banana, coconut even, and some pineapple. It's got a little bit of a sort of freshness to it as well as a sort of slightly more baked stewed flavours. Let's have a taste. Beautiful balance. Again, just that sweetness perfectly counteracted by some really ample acidity there, keeping everything really, really fresh and clean. Same flavours on the palate there, so you're getting all those tropical flavours, a little bit more dried flavours, so some raisin flavours coming in. Absolutely beautiful. In terms of pairing, obviously it's going to go really well with any sort of desserts. Poached pears are a favourite of mine, but any of those richer foods as well, so pate or any sort of richer blue cheeses, I think are always a really good pairing. And the saltier blue cheeses for that matter, like Roquefort, not too far from there. The salt and the sweet, just very, very good. Well, I hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope you've enjoyed your time with this particular tasting, and hopefully see you again soon. Cheers.